There are so many Easter eggs, secrets and hidden details in Another CRABS Treasure that it's already featured in 4 videos on this channel. And that's why I decided to make an entire video dedicated to this excellent Souls-like. This video will feature Easter eggs and details from those previous 4 videos, plus loads of other stuff that you won't have seen on this channel before. Saying that, if you think that I've still somehow managed to miss something, then please let me know in the comments down below. And without further delay, let's get started. Right, let's begin by taking a look at the multiple SpongeBob SquarePants references found in the game. First up, at the sands between, you can find this. So this pineapple under the sea is of course a reference to SpongeBob's home, which as we all know, is a pineapple under the sea. The next SpongeBob reference can be found in the Unfathom. Okay, so this one might be a little debatable. This tape is called Bob Christmas Party, but the label has been peeled off just before the word Bob, so it almost certainly said SpongeBob. Like I said, this might be a little debatable to some of you, but personally I think this is a nailed on SpongeBob reference. There is one more SpongeBob reference that can be found in the unlockable costumes. The Mr. Krill costume is an obvious nod to the money-hungry Mr. Krabs. Now, given that Another CRABS Treasure is a difficult game, the team over at Aggro Crab added a whole bunch of assists to help struggling players. These range from extra shell durability to extra dodge invincibility and everything else in between. Well, if you're still struggling, you can choose to give Krill a gun, which does exactly what you think it does. So the gun will one-shot any enemy in the game, even bosses, which makes combat in Another CRABS Treasure ridiculously easy. Now, when I first shared this assist in a previous video, opinions were split, but I think the fairest assessment that I saw was that whilst the gun should be in the game for players who struggle, you shouldn't be able to earn achievements whilst using it. But that's just my opinion. Oh, and whilst we're on the subject, if you look at the side of the gun, you can see that it says Squirrel was here, which is a reference to the upcoming game Squirrel with a Gun, which looks awesome. Speaking of references to other games, Another CRABS Treasure is not shy of shouting out a whole bunch of video game characters. First up is this abandoned fries carton, which at first glance looks like an obvious reference to McDonald's. The thing is, if you take a closer look at the logo on the carton, you can see that it isn't the famous golden arches, but is instead a very sus looking crewmate from Among Us. If that wasn't enough of an in-your-face Among Us reference, you can also buy the imposter shell from Shellfish Desires, which is just a crewmate from Among Us strapped to your back. Next up, near the beginning of the game, you can find a cigarette box with Mario's name on the front. Also, it's definitely worth reading the side of the box for an explanation on why smoking is bad for you. If you want to read that, pause the video now. When standing outside of Shellfish Desires, if you look at the store's logo, you'll be able to pluck the F key from it and use it as a shell. The description of the F key explains that it was used as a way to pay respects to fallen soldiers, which is a reference to the press F to pay respect scene from Call of Duty Advanced Warfare. In the Unfathom, you can find a reference to the iconic first-person shooter Doom in the form of this floppy disk, though in Another CRABS Treasure it's called Mood and has a tagline of "He's just like me for real." Also in the Unfathom, you can find an N64 version of another aggro crab game, the Eggcellent Going Under, and of course you can use it as a shell. Towards the end of the Bleach City, if you complete what is probably the hardest platforming section in the game, you can find this. So picking up the Knight's helmet will reward you with the Shells-like achievement, and that's because this helmet belongs to the Chosen Undead from the original Dark Souls. Of course, that's not the only Dark Souls reference in Another CRABS Treasure. At the sands between, you can find this. So this bonfire surrounded by swords is a reference to the bonfires found in the Dark Souls series. Interacting with the bonfire will reward you with the Sunlight outfit, which is another nod to Dark Souls, and the final video game reference can be found in the unlockable costumes. The Cult Leader outfit is a nod to Cult of the Lamb. So some of my favourite things to find in games are QR codes, and even though 9 times out of 10 they send you into the deadly jaws of a Rick Roll, sometimes they do something different. In the lower crust, you can find loads of QR codes that are too damaged to scan. However, there is one QR code that is intact, that you can scan, and that will take you here.
You just got coconut mauled. Share this with all your friends to totally coconut maul them.
Also in the lower crust, you will find a friendly sea urchin, who warns you not to get too close, otherwise you will get hurt. Well, Krill is a caring soul, and wants to give the urchin a hug, and each time he tries, he will in fact get hurt. Though eventually, you are rewarded for your compassion. So this one is a little long, so here's a timestamp to skip to the reward. But in my opinion, the dialogue is really funny, so I think it's worth a watch. Now, when it comes to idle animations, another CRABS treasure has one of the best. If you leave Krill still for too long, this will happen. Now, this is a cool animation, but it doesn't do anything different that we haven't seen in loads of games before. Except it does. You see, when performing the idle animation, Krill will play with one of his health pellets, which means he actually takes one from his inventory, which is really cool. When you're ready to play again and try to move Krill, he will drop the health item, meaning that it is no longer in his inventory or in his hands. So if you still want it, and I'm betting that you do, you will need to go and pick it up. It's very clever. Oh, and because this question was asked when I originally shared this animation, unfortunately, if you have no health pods and leave Krill idle, nothing happens, which is a real shame. Now, when it comes to crabs in pop culture, one of the most popular depictions of the crusty crustaceans is the Crab Rave meme. Crab Rave is a house song made by Noistorm in 2018, and the music video for the song sees a bunch of crabs busting some serious moves. Well, in the sands between, I think I might have found even more crabs that like to party. Now, whilst I'm not 100% certain, I think that this group of music-loving crabs is a reference to the Crab Rave. But if you think differently, let me know in the comments. Another Easter egg that I'm not quite sure about can also be found in the sands between. So here we can find a gravestone that says RIP Frederick, with a message underneath that says to the moon. Now I did do a bit of googling to see if I could find out what this means, but had no luck. If I had to guess, maybe someone on the dev team lost a goldfish, but I could be wrong. Like I said, I'm not sure, so all theories are welcome. So when exploring the upper crust, a lot of the walkways are made up of old receipts, and if you look closely, you can see that they say CND's nuts.
Got him! Got him!
Now, most of the time, if a game's camera clips inside of your character, all you can see is the empty shell of the person that you're controlling. But that's not the case in another CRABS treasure. If you position the camera just right, you can actually see the beating heart of Krill inside of his body, which is really cool. Right, the final Another CRABS treasure Easter egg can be found in loads of different places in the game. This brand of butter is called I Swear to God, if this isn't butter, I'm seriously going to lose it, which is an obvious parody to the real-life margarine brand called I Can't Believe It's Not Butter. Now, when I shared this find originally, a couple of very dedicated viewers actually went out of their way to check the ingredients on the back of the tub, where they confirmed that the contents are indeed salted butter. Also on the back of the tub is a very funny description of one person's struggles with margarine and butter, which I won't read out for you now, but I highly suggest pausing the video to read it for yourself, as I think it's hilarious. So that's it. If you enjoyed this video, then a like is really appreciated. If you are a fan of Easter eggs and secrets in games, then perhaps consider subscribing, as that's what this channel is all about. Thank you all for watching, and I'll speak to you all soon.